Christian.
Yeah. Do you have some question or? Yeah. How are you? We can start with that one.
I had to wrestle. I took a wrong turn trying to get into the parking lot. Oh my God. At one point I didn't think I was going to get in, but here we are. Okay, ask me a question.
Yeah, I have a question. How long did it take to like put on makeup and whatever else for the?
I just use eyeliner and that's all. No, it really depends on the makeups, but the good makeups, those would be the ones that you probably remember. They take a long time, often 4 hours, which is really hard because you got to get there 2 or 3 hours before everybody else, and then your days. It's just part of the deal. And if you can, sometimes they'll make up 2 people, the star who's wearing the makeup, as it were, and then somebody to take his place. You know, if it's a wide shot or something like that, because the days get eaten up by all that time in the makeup trail.
Yeah.
What was it like working with Betsy Palmer?
Betsy Palmer was a wonderful person. She played Mrs. Voorhees in the original Friday the 13th. And she was sort of a household icon. She had what was, can't remember what it was called, but it was a morning show. And hi everybody, it's 7 o'clock, time to get up, rise and shine. And she was part of that group, and so she was very trusted, very well thought of person. And I thought it would be kind of fun if I could get her to play Mrs. Voorhees, because once they saw her face, they would trust her. Now that trust doesn't have to last very long, but that's how she got there. She was very, very nice. And I remember being told that she was in a conversation with her agent, and she's concerned about making this little independent film, horror film in New Jersey. And on the other hand, I was paying her enough money that she could get a new car. So what she needed was a new car. That was her incentive. And she says, I don't know, I'm just a little nervous about making this picture. And her agent says to her, don't worry, nobody's ever going to see it. And that's how we got her to do the movie. Come on. Is anybody here that makes their own movies or little things for TikTok or there's one.
I was in director's art in filmmaking, and I was also did some directing in my high school for just like small documentaries. So it's kind of like the tough part for me was like choosing the right people for like the certain things that we wanted to discuss with, because we did a topic on drug abuse or abuse and stuff like that. So it was difficult to really pinpoint what face fit the description that we needed for like a certain face. Sometimes we needed somebody thinner, and sometimes somebody a little bigger, so and so on.
So do you have a big say as a director on who plays what, or is it the casting director?
Yeah, because I always thought it was a casting
director. I mean, if you're gonna do a cat video, right, you get to cast the cats.
Yeah.
You don't want some other cats coming in and messing up your scenes. No, the casting director is a very important person in the food chain. It's because one of the things that a casting director does is he always has to be out there looking for new talent. And, you know, because people do, you know, like little shows and they do little movies, and they have to be seen by somebody, and often that's a casting director. And if you are seen by the casting director, then he gets you in for an audition. And he has to know who's available, who's not, how much it costs, and all the rest of that. So you lean very heavily on your casting director at the beginning. You had another question?
Yeah. Has there ever been a situation where the casting director is like sometimes the director, or is it one person and then another?
The casting director is also the director?
Yes.
Yes.
No. I mean, of course, anytime you're making, a small movie, you have so little money that you might put an ad in Backstage magazine or something like that, casting call, and people send you pictures and so on. You become your own casting director because you can't afford to hire, a professional casting director. But it is a real job and it takes so much time that if you were directing a movie, you really don't want to try to be a casting director at the same time.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were.
Oh, no, I was just saying that's so interesting.
Oh, well, thank you. See, I can be interesting. See? My kids are. Okay, go on. Shout it out. Either one of you.
What was your favorite movie that you ever did?
Wizard of Oz.
That's a good movie.
Truth is that every time I'm in this situation, I think my favorite movie is the next movie I'm going to make, because that next time I'm going to get it right, And it's one of those things when you make a movie and you look back and you see it, people may really like it a lot, but all you can see is the errors you've made or the way you could have done it better or something like that. I don't think I have a. Yeah, I do have a favorite movie, but it's not a conventional thing. It's a documentary I made called The Nurse with the Purple Hair. But that's my favorite.
The nurse with the purple hair?
Yeah.
The Nurse with the Purple Hair. It's about people who work in hospice care, and it was a wonderful adventure to make that movie. Okay, there you go.
If you could direct a movie in your own version, like one that's already made but your own way, what movie would it be?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. If you were to make an existing movie in your own version, like to direct it your way, what movie would it pick?
Oh, if I tell me if I'm right or wrong, that there exists a movie, and they say, yeah, but let's say it's an Italian movie, and you say, Sean, you want to do that? We can get the rights, and you just can make the movie and make it your own way. Is that?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah. So you
Like
could
doing
pick
your
an
own
existing
remake?
movie, change whatever.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's unlikely, but I doubt. I once. The job of a producer and a director is always to try to find a script or a story that really engages you. And if you got a really good movie, you wouldn't want to remake a really good movie, because the good movie's already been made, and what'll happen is it'll seem like it's a pale imitation. I always thought it was a good idea to look for good ideas for movies, but that they were executed badly. They were cast wrong or shot badly. Something went wrong. They screwed up the ending, and then you can take the good idea and try to fix it. But I don't know. It's always the quest for a story that not only engages you, but which you think other people will enjoy. And that's the key job. Making movies is from getting the movies made and financed and cast and trying to find the scripts and rewrites. That stuff is just endless, and there's no other way around
And is there a movie you wish you would have made?
it.
And is there an existing movie that isn't one of yours that you wish you would have made?
Yeah, I Wizard of Oz. Come on, there you go. Mary Mackenzie.
Yeah, nice to see you again. How was it working with Kevin Bacon? Because I think that was one of his first earlier films. Do you think Friday the 13th helped put him on the map to be as successful as he was? Or did you have any idea he was gonna, like, did you get an inkling, oh, this kid's good, he's gonna
Yeah.
go big one day or anything?
No, I cast the movie in New York, and I lived in Connecticut at the time. And Kevin Bacon was one of those people that came in, recommended as, you know, a nice kid with potential. But he was, I don't know, he was young. I don't think he was more than about 21 when we shot it. And he was totally professional and just couldn't have been a nicer person to work with. And I've never had any reservations about what he did. And he took a, you know, kind of a dull, simple part and made it interesting. People respond to something in Kevin Bacon. That's something I think is probably star quality. There's some reason you watch this person when he's in a movie and you stay interested in him, even if he's not doing anything. But anyway, he's a treat. What? Yeah, what the hell?
From the first film, did you expect Friday the 13th to blow up, to become such a big franchise that it did?
No. When I made Friday the 13th, movies were made by studios, and they were made, there were two kinds of movies, but the studio movies were produced to be shown in theaters around the country and finally around the world. And if you're going to do that, you do that with a star. They didn't make movies without some kinds of stars. Television stars at that point didn't count. And then there were other little movies, which like, oh gosh, little low-budget movies. And what would happen is, you know, a guy who called himself a distributor might get 10 copies of the movie, put it in the back of a station wagon, and drive into a town. And essentially he'd take out ads in the local newspaper, put up some posters, and then people would come in and see it. But it was all done on a very small scale. I had made 2 children's films before Friday the 13th, and one of them, I was trying to figure out how I could get a better title than the title I had. And so you start making lists of things, just any titles you can think of, going up and down. While I was doing that, I thought of Friday the 13th. I said, yeah, which had nothing to do with my kids' movie. But I wrote it down and I was like, yeah, if I had a movie called Friday the 13th, I could sell that, you know, but all I had was a title. And cut to 6 months later, I was just having a hellish time trying to get my next movie made, whatever it's going to be. And so I took out an ad in the newspaper and said, Friday the 13th, the most terrifying movie ever made. Didn't exist. But I wanted to see if anybody was interested in getting involved or you know, helping to finance it, and it happened very quickly, and it was just by accident. You know, I always expected Friday the 13th to do something that was going to get us over this long summer, and then next spring we'd be off on something else. I never thought it was going to turn into a franchise. Yes?
What advice would you give, and what criteria do you need to have in order to go into directing if you're interested in that?
Okay? The question is, what would I,
Yeah, what, 2 and 1. What criteria do you need to have in order to go into directing, and what advice would you give to start?
the two questions are, what would you do to start to learn how to direct, and
Yeah,
if you're
and
gonna
what,
make
and what
it-
requirements do you need to have?
well, okay. It's pretty simple. That doesn't make it easy. The key ingredient is being a storyteller, not somebody who knows how to operate the camera, or somebody could be a very good actor, but not a very good storyteller. And learning how to tell a story, and by the way, that could be telling a story to your friends. You wouldn't believe what happened to me at the supermarket. You know, I went in there and I got the card, you know, and tells a story. Now, hopefully that story is interesting. And if you're a boring storyteller, you're going to be a boring movie maker. But you have to have that sense of how to tell a story that has a sense of and then, and then, and then. The craft of making a movie, and I'm going to, you know, I mean, there are directors of commercials, there are directors of documentary films, there are directors, you know, in television doing all kinds of things. But the kind of director that winds up telling stories that last more than 15 minutes, it's an acquired skill. And what you can do, and what I recommend that you do, is you make a movie. And it could be 5 minutes. You know, it could be a cat video. Right? But make a good cat video. And then put it aside. And make a good dog video. Make a movie about kids that have a fight on the playground. How could you make that interesting and tell us a movie? And every movie that you're going to make, you're going to make mistakes. And the only way you learn anything is by making a mistake and say, never going to do that again. But you have to do it and do it and do it. And there's an expression as beware of perfection. It's the enemy of good. And you want to make a movie as well as you possibly can today. And that won't be, you know, a classic, but it will be as good as you can make it. But if you say, I'm going to make a movie today, it's going to be perfect, you'll probably never get your movie made, and if you do, it'll be awful. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
There's another question there.
Hi.
What was it like working with directors?
Oh, Wes and I met when we were both starting out at the very beginning of our filmmaking careers. And Wes worked down the hall, and he drove a taxi cab, had been an English teacher, and we bonded, and he came to work with me on this little film that I was working on and finishing up at the time. And we became, what if, you know, you want to try to make a movie? And I said, yeah, let's try to make a movie. But literally it was like, you know, little things you see in a movie, like, you know, let's put on a play, I can get some costumes, my mom will do the sets and stuff like that. And we hadn't any idea of what we were going to do, but, you know, we wrote a script. It was loosely based on a Bergman classic, and just went ahead and shot it. And, you know, I would tell you that we absolutely didn't know what we didn't know. So when you don't know anything, you don't realize you're making big mistakes at the beginning and doing things that other people who knew better would say, don't do it. But that's how we got started. And he and I were friends from the time we met until he died. And we were always close friends. Good guy. You know, if you were to meet Wes, he would sound and act like a college professor, not some sort of, crazy goth-dressed, crazy person. He was just nice and sensible and warm-hearted, and he had a very quiet, nice, easy way about it. He's a good person. You got a question? There you go.
Do you have a favorite scene or Friday the 13th?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Our favorite scene in Friday the 13th.
Favorite scene in the original Friday the 13th? Well, it'd be easy to say, Jason comes out of the lake. But that really wasn't my favorite scene. And when we shot it, nobody knew if it was going to work or not. But we shot it anyway and tried to make it work. The scene that was in the movie that was very deliberate was Kevin Bacon's death. And I don't know how many of you remember it, but he's in a bunk bed and we in the audience know, but Kevin Bacon doesn't know, that there's a dead body above him bleeding. And it's like a magic trick. Your focus is over here and then you do something over here. And that's how the surprise came about in I think it's an arrow going through his neck. That would not be a big deal to do today, but at the time it was a big deal because it looked real. We had no computer animation, no CGI, no real special effects. You just had to figure out how to do a magic trick. And the audience would look at the magic trick and get dazzled. And that was fun. And Friday the 13th, someplace in the 80s, it was just kind of the end of practical effects and magic tricks. Because up until, including Friday the 13th, we treated the camera as an impartial observer. And you could trust the camera because what happened in front of the camera happened in front of the camera. But as soon as there was something called special effects and CGI and the rest, the camera was part of this conspiracy to fool you. And so you stopped believing the fun belief that something is happening that couldn't really be happening. Oh, there's another one.
Yeah. What was it like working with Tom Savini on the first film?
I'm saying it.
What was it like working with Tom Savini on the film?
Savini was a crazy person.
Yeah.
He still is a crazy person. Sure. And we had no money, real money to go to Hollywood and get special effects. And George Romero had done his first Dawn of the Dead, I think. And a guy named Tom Savini, who lives in Pittsburgh, had done special effects. So we tried to track him down and ask him if he wanted to come up to Connecticut and meet with us and talk about doing a horror film. And he came up the next day, and he didn't go home until the movie was finished. and he was just, he had so much energy, and he has a great deal of talent. And he's a student of the art. He really is. He teaches, he has a school now in Pittsburgh. And I think it's in Pittsburgh. And he has dozens of kids that come in and take a year of classes and make all kinds of things. And he really enjoys teaching, he tells me. All right, was there something I said? Come on. Something I didn't say. Go ahead.
So I know I asked earlier about if you had a favorite sequel, and I think you mentioned you liked the remake was pretty good. Do you have, so let me ask the opposite, is there one of the sequels that you're just like, that sucks?
Oh.
Like, your least favorite or something just like, or at least your least favorite?
I don't, I think I disdained all of them equally. but the Friday the 13th is has become almost ritualized. Because if you're going to go see a new Friday the 13th movie, if you ever did, you knew what to expect. Somehow or other, this character, Jason in a mask, was going to confront people that he didn't like and raise hell with them. That's what it had to be, and it was very dependable. One of my partners referred to it as like a blue-collar movie. You knew what you're gonna get. You got it, and then you went home. And I think that the thing that's always been my obsession is trying to find new stories. And it's really hard because there really are no new stories, but some way of telling a story that you can share. And I was obsessed for years with trying to figure out how to do Freddy versus Jason. You'd have a story with essentially two villains in a story, and it's like, well, who are you rooting for, and why, and that was as difficult a puzzle as I've ever worked on. And the movie, such as it was, didn't contain many of the elements that I thought were critical, but the movie worked fine. Everybody seemed to. The mistakes just made certain scenes funnier and more accessible, because on the face of it, it was silly, so people didn't go in there and just get scared out of their minds. They went in there and laughed and threw stuff at the screen and had a good time. Okay? It was very brave. Yeah. I saw you trying before, and then you pulled it down.
What inspired you to be a director, or when did you discover that that's what you wanted to do?
You have to speak up. I'm old and deaf.
What inspired you to become a director, and when did you realize that's what you wanted to do?
How did I become a director? When did I become a director? And when did I decide that's what I wanted to do? I think I pretty much decided I wanted to be a director about 4 months ago. Up until then, it's like, you put your toe in the water and see how it works. But really, I started out making very primitive documentary films, and it's like making a cat video. You're the only one that you can afford to do certain things, and I think that there are people that just know the craft so well, and I never was trying to compete with those people who could. David Lean would do Lawrence of Arabia. It's like, how do they do that? But I like directing small stories, and I wanted to do that for a long time. You don't get a chance to do that very much. You can do it now because of the accessibility of computers for editing and digital cameras. But back when I was, learning how to make movies, it was hard to do. And what I did was I just said, okay, I'm going to direct this, and then I would make some terrible mistakes, and then try not to make them again. And just that's what I did. I would think that the advice that I would give to anybody thinking about doing it now is you have to allow at least minimum of 10,000 hours of study. And that may sound like a lot, but it's not. And I think that anybody I know that really loves movies has put in so many more hours than that. But it is a craft. It's nothing that's ethereal and comes out of the clouds. It comes as a product of really hard work. And you can work really hard for a long time and not get it. But unless you work really hard, it'll never happen for you. I'm sorry, is that depressing?
No, it's good.
Or you could just take a weekend seminar and then you'd be fine.
I have like maybe two questions. First, if there's somebody that has a meeting room with Abigail in right now, and the other question for you, what ingredients does it take to like build a good horror movie to you? What do you need? If there's like a recipe, or you need like some music, like some tricks, or how does it take to create the fear, create a horror movie?
Well, I wish there were a formula that you could do. I think if you start doing formulas, you have boring movies. So I think that to do an effective horror movie, you've got to have people in the movie that seem natural and real. And one or more of the people in your world has to be in jeopardy. And then there's something really extreme going on. I think horror movies are extreme by definition. And every 10 years the definition of extreme may change, but it has to be extreme. Past that, I think you have to do stories that you respond to. And if you like the story, then there's a good chance you'll be able to make it feel real. And I think there are a library of stories like Grimm fairy tales, which are the basis of so many other pieces of media, including movies. I don't know if that answers your question, but there's no magic recipe, that's for sure.
Some other questions?
Come on. Come on. Okay.
It's good.
So you've done some different horror movies for some genre of horror movies, like Friday the 13th is more like of a slasher, but you've done also some sort of horror comedy. Like, are there like, what do you like in those different kind of genre? Is like a different approach to it, or?
Well, okay. I said before that there wasn't a movie that I wanted to remake. A movie that I worked very hard on the script and I hope to shoot it, sometime soon, is a remake of the original House movie. And House was very successful in its time, but what it mixed together was scary stuff and fun stuff. And so that it became a fun horror experience, not unlike what you might get at Six Flags or Universal Studios. It's accessible, but not. It's not going to keep you up at night, I don't think. But I would love to get a chance to work on that and try to make that as interesting and as fun as I could. I've made movies with kids on the beach and drinking too much beer, singing songs, and trying to jump in bed with whoever they could find. I've made documentaries. I've made a lot of short films. So it's one of those things you just keep working on. Try to work on the craft of being a storyteller. Does that answer?
Yeah, totally. Do we have maybe one last question? Yeah?
Do you have any favorite memories of being on set?
I don't know that I have. Well, being on set is always rewarding somehow. But a movie I made in the late 80s, I think, was called Deep Star 6, and it was shot in a submarine, or meant to be a submarine, and in the water. And so we had to build a great big tank full of water to shoot our special effects and all kinds of things. And wound up spending probably 3 weeks straight in the water. And it's like, and everybody, I don't know everybody, but there were 20 or 30 people involved in it every day, and it was sort of like we were a gang that, got together to do this really difficult thing. And I remember one character had to get eaten by the monster towards the end, towards the end. And the day we were gonna, kill her on set, I got all depressed. Oh, I mean, I really liked her. No, and she's a part of our gang, So that shows that, I was just committed to that willing suspension of disbelief. And yes, you work really hard with a bunch of people that you might never work with again, but the bond is really intense.
Another question?
I have a question. Were there any pranks done with the actors and with you during filming?
Any pranks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's none that stick out, but it's that thing that when you see movies at the end, sometimes they have outtakes and B-rolls, and every movie has them. Not every movie records them or uses them in the thing, but there's so much pressure on the people that are making it that when something happens, it starts to become funnier than it might be in real life. But yeah, you can't avoid it. It's just hard work demands that.
One last one?
Okay, you guys that just came in the back, you got a question? Yeah, you. Yeah, you.
No, but I do love your movies. I'll just say that. I love all the horror movies you've done are awesome.
Well, you can stay. No problem.
What's your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie, there are different kinds, but I loved the original Alien. And nothing like that had ever been made before when I saw it. And there were a 3 scenes in that movie going, oh my God, that scared me. It scared me to death. It scared the life out of me. That was a really good job. Subsequently, Aliens, that was the second Alien movie, followed it, but that was more like a war movie. But the first Alien as a horror movie, the simplicity of it was really terrific. But another type of movie, a horror movie, would be